Ayo, lucky listeners. Today's episode number 61 of the Luck Management Podcast, is brought to you by CharmND. Today's episode is a very fun and interesting look into the professional world, the world of ESPN, the world of sports, but also intermingling and connecting into the world of finance. We brought on a very special guest, Chris Maier, on the podcast. He was Notre Dame 1997 graduate and loved being able to sit down with him. This first part of the podcast, if you are watching on YouTube, we were unable to get the video because it kept lagging. So if you wanted to just see me in freeze frame, you weren't going to get it. But a lot of laughs, a lot of interesting conversations, a lot of gratefulness for the work of Notre Dame and beyond. So enjoy this episode and keep living the luck management lifestyle. Ayo, the Luck Management Podcast is brought to you by CharmND. CharmND is an idea I came up with at my time at University of Notre Dame. I graduated last year, but before I graduated, I wanted a way to hold and have Notre Dame in my hands. More so than just a hat, more so than a diploma, even though that diploma was real nice. I wanted to figure out a way of taking and encapsulating Notre Dame. And I am nowhere near in being able to do so, but what I have done is I've come up with these charms, mementos, these keepsakes from the hallowed grounds of the University of Notre Dame. So we've branched off into two sort of areas that have come off to be incredible opportunities of building faith, of meeting Notre Dame fans from all around the country. So the first one I want to show you and talk to you about is the sterling silver vial filled with the grotto wax. So Mother Mary's grotto wax, the candles, and then an Irish shamrock. We have these necklaces that are sterling silver and added blessings, I would say, at the end of the day. Added blessings. Next, in that same vein, we have wine stems. So from all around campus. So we have wine stems with the pellets from the Notre Dame football stadium. We have wood from the old Notre Dame wood seats. Then we have the grotto again, the wax from the grotto. Another Irish symbol. And then we have gold flakes. Same gold flakes that's used on the Notre Dame football helmets. And speaking of that, our bestseller, we have the Notre Dame football earrings. So these Notre Dame football earrings have been incredible because I work with Finish Line Industries and the team that paints the Notre Dame helmets with the real gold used from the Golden Dome. So you are actually holding a piece of the Notre Dame football team. We also have the shamrock earrings as well that say Irish on them. How Irish of us. And then last but not least, my favorite and the real ode to Notre Dame football is the keychain. So it has 24 karat gold flakes. It has the Notre Dame football helmet with the same paint that is used on the Notre Dame football helmets. And then we have the AstroTurf from the field. And then we also have the old wood seats. So you can put these on your keys and you're supporting the Fighting Irish wherever you go. So go Irish and go CharmND. Heyo, welcome back to the Luck Management Podcast. We're here with Chris Maier, getting into the managing expectations questions. So the first one, we got to kick it off with, can you tell me a little bit about your upbringing and career up until this moment?
Well, I'm the second son of four boys in a Catholic family raised in Cincinnati, as I've mentioned before, where they taught me the value of hard work and treating people the way that you'd like to be treated. And then when you kind of get to my career, and anybody that looks me up on LinkedIn is going to know I have anything but a stair step careers. I've got stints in family business, the entertainment industry at ESPN, and then most recently in financial services. Here where I kind of lead a team of 50 digital marketers, supporting financial advisors. And I think the biggest common thread as I look at it, especially in those three, where the family business, the entertainment industry, as well as working in the financial services industry, is that it's been about problem solving. I always like to say, you'll hear me say the phrase solution oriented problem solving a lot, because I think that that's a key component to problem solving, is really trying to think about the solutions as you go through that, and then developing people to be their best. I like to, I've been a coach for many, many years between basketball and soccer primarily. And one of the things I've always feel like is this a skill that I've always been able to demonstrate, is how to put people in the best positions to succeed. And it's one of those areas when you're able to translate into the business side of things. That's where I always feel like you find everybody's got a unique skill set. It's my job when I'm working with them to, how can I, especially if I'm managing that individual, how can I make sure I put that person in the best position to maximize their skill set? So that's probably one of the things I'm most proud of, are one of those skills that I feel like I've been blessed to have developed over the years.
It's beautiful to see. I guess that leads into our next thing. If you had to use 5 words to describe you, your life, and your career up until this moment, what would you say?
That's always a tricky one. We got to figure it out in 5 words. I mean, that's tough. But at the end of the day, I would look at it probably determination and passion, family,
Hmm.
caring, and a coach. Those are my 5 words to kind of sum me up, in terms of. But it's hard to put it into 5 words. Good
Oh,
question.
it's incredibly difficult to put it into 5 words. And that's why I challenge some of the people that come on here to do that, because it really makes you think about the things that you care about at the end of the day. But you were talking about determination, passion, family, and coach. I, like, even just those four, they meld so well together. And that to be a part of a family is to, respect authority and coaching, and being able to take coaching, but to be passionate about it and bring that excitement and the everyday wanting to build something better or new, even more so. It builds that. And then you look at the determination.
Yeah.
Undoubtedly, you will be put in a couple lucky situations and you're like, hey, this is great. But more often than not, you're going to step into a spot where things aren't going to go your way, or things haven't gone your way. And it's all about that determination, or that end view in goal. And so I really do translate and identify with those 5 that you just said.
Excellent.
That's great. Um, so I'd like to learn a little bit about you as a movement from this wavy career that you've had. So you said you've been in, working with homes, you've been working in media, and now you're working in financial instruments. Can you talk about that direction of how you got there, and uh, what advice you would give to people along the way of maybe not the traditional career or work path?
Well, and it's the interesting thing I think about is, like I said, it's not stair step at all. But what I think is very interesting is that as I go back, and as you look back on your career, which I guess I've been in it far enough now that I can actually kind of do that, is I look at each job that I've had, especially the last couple, and they've all built, each of the previous roles has kind of built in and helped me develop the skill set to succeed in that next role. So while they're not stair step per se, they've been just the right set of experiences to allow me to take that next step in my career and that next challenge on. And I think that's part of, I think, what it is. And if you're looking for like advice to give people, it's just like, number one, identify where your passions are, because at the end of the day, it's never about following the money. Part of the reason I think I don't have a stair step career is I don't think I've ever taken a job just for the money or whatnot. I've done jobs that I'm more passionate about. I stayed at ESPN probably longer than I should have, because I just loved what I did. I mean, I had my dream job. It didn't have the upward trajectory that I would have, unless, initially had hoped it would or whatnot, but I just loved getting a chance to do it. I mean, think about it. I was getting to provide statistical and historical support for events and trades and stuff as they were happening live. I mean, as a sports fan, it's many of our dream to be able to impact the way people process and learn about those storylines. I mean, it was a great job. I really loved it, but it's always been about follow the passion. Because if you do something you're passionate about, you're going to be successful. Now, your definition of success may be different. It's not always going to be about money. And for me, it's never been just about money. It's nice to have, don't get me wrong. And I want to maximize that which I have, but it's always about doing something that you're passionate about, doing something that you enjoy doing. And when you do that, people can feel the energy and they can really, grow from it and build off of it and whatnot. And I think it makes the whole team and just makes life more fun, I think, in that way. But that would be my number one piece of advice on it.
I don't think you can trick authenticity. And people, as much as you can step behind a screen or build a video or uh, say what you want, people know if you're being a legit, real person to them. It's one of our great ways of sifting through the BS.
Exactly.
And I will have to say, like, I have, in my past, I took a career, or I went into a job because of the money, or I went into it because it looked good on paper, but it wasn't a passion and it wasn't something that drove me to be who I wanted to be. And you sometimes have to learn that the hard way. And that's why we have this podcast, to be able to talk to somebody like you that you followed a passion, and some people aren't doing that. So it's like being able to push that on uh, a cool opportunity for people.
Yeah, just as I said, I really don't look, but there's definitely things that you always look back and say, oh, I would have done X differently, I would have done that differently. But the thing is, if I didn't do those things, I wouldn't have gotten to where I am today. And I don't know that I'd really want to change that much. I'm happy with what I've done and what I've been able to achieve and whatnot. And I think that it's sometimes taking the risks and taking the gambles, or maybe doing something that, in some respects was a step back. It, ultimately it helps make you the person that you are.
Yep. And I think it's that glass half full attitude right there too. It's like I wouldn't want to change any of the hardships and the problems that I went through, because they have ultimately defined you of who you are today.
Oh, most definitely. I mean, that's adversity makes us stronger. And I definitely feel like, and I'm probably still, it's one of those things that I look back at, like my career, and you look at things and like where things didn't go your way or where you had your biggest setbacks. Some of my biggest successes came shortly after those biggest setbacks. And that's where I'm definitely a firm proponent of, adversity really does make you stronger, although you don't always feel that way in the moment. I definitely don't feel that way in the moment on that, but I definitely can look back at things like, losing my job at ESPN as a COVID layoff, a little over, almost 3 years to the day, almost, to be honest.
Well,
And, didn't even realize that's kind of hit me in this moment. But that was a difficult, challenging day for me, but it ultimately opened many doors where I could be a club soccer and a JV soccer coach. It opened the doors for me to manage a team at LPL Financial, where I get to tap into a part of my skill set that I don't think I ever realized existed, where I really get to pour in and grow and develop a team of um, digital marketers at a level that I probably never would have had before. I mean, I've never had the opportunity to manage a team, 50 people, especially many of whom are early in their careers, and being able to make the impact that you hope, can really set them forward in the long haul. And it's been a really unique experience that I've gone through from that whole thing. But I really think I went from losing my dream job to finding a job that ideally ended up maybe a better fit for my skill set, and it definitely was a better fit for my lifestyle at this phase of life.
right, right. The way that I heard an analogy the other day is that when you're dealing with that adversity, or you're dealing with an issue, there's a difference between being buried and there's a difference between being planted. And it all comes down to the intention or the pursuit that you're going to do from it. So you can go through an issue, or you can maybe be laid off, or be like, but what is that intention, or where is it going to take you to the next spot? Because if you're buried, you're done, right? It's over. But if you're planted, you're putting in the seed of work to build out of it, to
Mm-hmm.
grow into something that can spread like wildfire. So I I completely resonate with that. And then in terms of, working at ESPN, you talked about this passion, your love of working there. What what was the best part about being at ESPN? And I think it's every guy's dream from the ages of like 10 to 25 right now, that whole era of ESPN. And you were there during it. Can you just walk us through a little bit about what that was like?
Yeah, I mean, literally, short of being being the athlete on the field, I mean, I was doing the job that I always felt like I was born to do. Again, which was, I was in charge of overseeing our college football or our college basketball or our NFL coverage, in the moment, managing the reaction, to the events, leading it, leading our team of researchers and bottom line editors in terms of how we're going to react to the story. What were the how and whys behind the different stories so that we can really differentiate our coverage on ESPN and our increasingly, difficult space. And, you look back at, I mean, obviously the work that you're doing in the moment. I mean, college football Saturdays, literally my office was sitting in front of a bank of 8 TVs that I personally got the program into 8 different games to watch, and they were all 50-inch plus screens, that I was doing. And then, but at the end of the day, obviously that's fun, it's energetic, but at the end of the day, it's about the people. The biggest thing about it was the people I got to work with, the people I got to learn from. I mean, the biggest thing I look at is, I was just highlighting before about my LPL job, that I feel like such a unique, fit for my particular skill set. But many of the tools that have made me successful in my current role, the ones that were built while working at ESPN, overcoming, working in a deadline driven, pressure filled environment regularly, getting the leadership training I did. I mean, the best supervisor and mentor I probably ever had in my career. His name's Patrick Caulfield. He's a senior director, at ESPN now. I mean, one of the best leaders I've ever had an opportunity. He's really taught me how to take a step back, to think things through in the moment, that whole, as I mentioned earlier in the show, about solution oriented problem solving. He's the one that really embodied that whole philosophy of, it's easy to identify the problem, but you really don't get to start understanding how to solve it if you haven't thought about what are the potential solutions. Because sometimes you have a huge problem, and the solution's super, super hard. And as a result, that's why the problem still exists. But you really can inform yourself with that solution. And the other one, this is probably the one that's been the best piece of advice I've probably ever gotten in my professional career: assume good intent. The vast majority of people we work with in our career, they're not out to get you. They may give you difficult feedback. They may give you a different point of view that you don't agree with. They maybe make a decision that you don't like, but very rarely do they have ill intent in that. And I think if you assume good intent, it allows you to overcome a lot of the angst and the stress in the workplace, especially when you're struggling. I mean, I've got high standards for myself. I've got that perfectionist mindset that always drives me forward. I always call that my blessing and my curse. But when you assume good intent, it really helps you get through it. It really gives you a lot of good perspective, especially in those, in times where you're receiving some difficult messaging, or messaging you don't necessarily agree with.
That is great advice, number one. At times, yeah, you look at somebody giving you advice or a change, or your idea didn't go through. It doesn't mean it's an attack on you.
Oh,
It's a growth. It's a opportunity to maybe learn a little bit more, or hey, what do we not look at in this perspective? What do we not pinpoint right here that would have been beneficial? And it improves you. So yeah, take it in stride. I love that.
yeah.
Cool.
But
So moving into a couple more of the questions here, who has been the most critical and crucial person in your life?
I mean, obviously the easy answer for this is to say my mom and dad. I mean, they're the people that made me who I am today. My dad for teaching me about, love and respect for God and other people. My mom for, teaching me to chase my dreams. But as I mentioned before, taking it a different angle is, I look back at that mentor I mentioned before, Patrick.
Okay.
He was the one person at ESPN after I left the company that continued to meet with me as I was looking for that next step and finding that next dream job. And I just saw how much he poured into me and how much I'm in debt to the mentorship and guidance and leadership, that he brought into me. And that's just something I've built into my entire management philosophy, is really, putting other people above myself and to really pour into trying to help them be the best that they can be. And I think I've just because of the mentorship I received from him, I just think that's where I probably learned more about leadership than anything, was having the opportunity to work with him as closely as I did for many years at ESPN. And just, I think that is more than any person I can think of has shaped, my management style to this day. So that would probably be my biggest influence outside of the parents, of course.
Great. It's a service leadership, right? When you are able to take the focus off yourself, you're able to fill the perception or fill into the shoes of others and actually pinpoint issues that I don't think you would ever see before. That's something that I did at Notre Dame. I served as like the vice president for our class there, and time again, just being able to serve and work my butt off for people, I felt the most fulfilled in my entire life. It's
Well,
sometimes those actions when you're just taking care of yourself, you're like, I'm not fulfilled. I'm not
well, you get such a broader view that way, because it becomes about the right idea, or making the step forward. And when you take yourself out of the mix, I think that's where a lot of growth learns. And you learn as much, you learn from the other people in those experiences too. I mean, I think some of the biggest things I look at in my career, especially making the big transition I did, working from a content management role at ESPN to this digital marketing financial lead role that I'm doing at LPL, and how much I came in as a senior leader on my team, and how much I had to learn from my direct reports as I was building, had to rebuild that foundational knowledge and really understand the things that they do in every day. And again, it's that I always like to say, you don't want to ask people to do something you're not willing to do yourself. But again, I think you really brought it home with the servant leadership and the being able to serve, and how much it opens your eyes to a much broader perspective than you would otherwise.
What's the biggest difference you've seen from sports management to financial management?
Here's the biggest thing I think surprised me the most, more than I thought this was going to be a night and day difference when I was working in these two different industries. It was very different roles, very different things I was working with day in and day out. And the transition was so much smoother than I realized, because problem solving at ESPN was no different than the problem solving I'm doing at LPL. Managing people is not any, managing people and helping them grow and develop. Yes, the skills and the roles are different, but the tenets of listening and being an active listener, being an active learner, continuously improving, building into their skill set, identifying their strengths and weaknesses, that part's all the same. And I even look at the work that I do in terms of, the overall work is like at ESPN, my end client was producers and talent who we were then serving viewers. Whereas now working at LPL, obviously we're the marketing side. So, our customers are our financial advisors who are serving their end clients. The really, the pathway is about the same, in that we're serving X group who serves Y group. And I think that being able to see they've been much more synergistic than I ever could have thought of. At the end of the day, other than obviously the sports medium being different, probably the biggest difference in some respects is I got much better hours than I had when I was at ESPN. I mean, at ESPN, I worked pretty much every Friday and Saturday night from like 4 p.m. to 1 a.m., because supporting those live events, because we worked when the games are being played. Whereas now I work Monday through Friday and I get my weekends back. So it's all in all, as much as I missed ESPN and, I enjoyed my 9+ years there, it's really been, of all the things that I've ever experienced, probably one of the biggest blessings in disguise has been that being able to make that move, which definitely did not feel like it in that moment, 100%. But it's really, I think, positioned me better for the long run, having the opportunity.
Couple points there. I think finance and sports can have such a large connection just because of that excitement. You got to have the determination. You're working with people. You got to build trust. You got to build teamwork, camaraderie together, and being like, hey, this is the plan we're going to go through and move forward in. It's like a security things. People love their bank accounts and they love their sports teams, so it kind of goes hand in hand. um, on the second thing on ESPN, they are still the ultimate leader in worldwide sports. They just got into this partnership with NHL. But undoubtedly, too, a lot of people can criticize or see how ESPN has changed from the old time of like just Sports Center and putting on different things. Do you think that ESPN is going in the right direction? Was it just the direction that it should have been going in? What are your thoughts on all the changes that have happened with ESPN?
I think the biggest, I mean, it's hard to say whether they went the right direction or the wrong direction. I think the industry has moved. It's kind of an example. I don't know if you've ever heard of the book "Who Moved My Cheese," but I think the cheese has moved within in terms of that and their market, because it's so much more interspersed now with streaming coming in. There's so much more competition. I mean, Amazon and Apple are as much ESPN's competition as Fox and CBS nowadays. And so it's, cord cutting has hurt ESPN more than anybody, because they got the largest, they get the largest amount out of the cable subscriptions in terms of dollars. So I think it's impacted that whole industry. I mean, you look at the whole streaming industry in general, I think it's still struggling to figure out what exactly it wants to be and how to be profitable. And we're seeing sports rights in particular being the one thing that really drives traffic outside. I mean, it's really hard to find a hit TV show, but sports is the one thing that you can purchase that will drive numbers and subscribers and viewers. But, here, in speaking to a topic like Notre Dame fans can really relate to, is, I mean, how much does it drive us crazy when NBC puts that one game on Peacock every year, and then we all got to go run out and subscribe to Peacock, and then Peacock's not ready for the amount of people and stuff. I mean, you watch the fractured audience. The biggest challenge we have as sports fans nowadays is, where are we watching what sporting events? And the key is, in order to be able to watch a different team or a league, sometimes you have to have 2, 3, 4 subscriptions to be able to watch all your games. And it's becoming a much more stratified environment. And I think ESPN is really getting pulled and stretched in a variety of directions that I don't know that there's a really easy solution for them. At the end of the day, I think that, that our sports rights eventually going to hit their ceiling. They've been going up, 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 up at such a peak value, and are they going to level off, or even take a downward trend? And because they're not growing, I think, at the same rate, and those networks aren't making the money at the rate that they were before. So I think there's a pivotal moment, I think, in not just ESPN, but I think the sports world in general, we have to watch out for here in the next 5 or 10 years. The move for the almighty dollar, like we talked about earlier about conference realignment, I think it's been great for revenue and getting TV contracts, but is it really growing, and is it in the best interest in the sports in the long run? And the jury's still out on what that'll be in the big picture. But but ESPN's a great company. They've had amazing success. They're still doing a lot. They're still at the forefront of innovation in that industry. But I definitely feel like they're being stretched and stressed at a much more challenging rate than they ever have. And the hardest part when you look at it is, ever since I started there in 2011, and they pretty much had layoffs every 2 years since then. And every one of them, and maybe with each pass, every one of them's gut wrenching and whatnot. I feel very blessed that I had a versatile skill set. Not everyone's has been as fortunate as I've been to be able to land into new spots as readily as I have, because, maybe you have a more specialized role. And I can tell you, the role I had at ESPN, nothing existed like it. Interview companies didn't know what to do with me as a candidate, because I wasn't a digital marketer. I was working with sports content and stats and storytelling. I had to be able to tell a story about how I could do digital marketing and transition to it. And I was very fortunate to be able to lean on a Notre Dame MBA and some previous marketing experience and whatnot that I had before.
That's so cool. You built it out. You made yourself invaluable, and you took maybe a lucky situation and you managed it to fit into a career. Yes. And a growth rate there. That's actually, that's the whole idea around this podcast. So that's beautiful. And
Ayo, this episode is sponsored and brought to you by CharmND. CharmND specializes in creating unique and authentic sterling silver vials and real items from around the Notre Dame campus. Each charm is carefully handmade and contains a little piece of the Fighting Irish spirit. Vials filled with dirt from the iconic main quad, pellets from the hollowed ground of the Notre Dame football stadium, wood shavings from the seats of the stadium, 24 karat golds from the Notre Dame football helmets, water from the serene St. Joseph's Lake, candle wax from the peaceful grotto, water from the Notre Dame reflecting pond, and holy water for added blessings. Charms are priced at between $20 and $30 and can be customized to your needs as a necklace or a lucky charm. Check us out at charm_ND at Instagram. Our charms are a perfect gift for any Notre Dame fan or alum. So go Charm ND and go Irish. Now let's get back to the show.
The two things that just came out of what you were just saying there too, I think sports have become the old adage of a sitcom. Like before, 50 million people would sit down and watch a sitcom, and everyone watched Seinfeld. Everyone knew what was going on. Now everything is so segmented in the sports world, and these streaming devices, nobody has a show that they watch, but everybody does seem to watch that big game. And so it's becoming more of almost like a testament to how people look at time in the world. So
it's definitely the one thing that still drives is, live sports is the only thing left that people, that's the only appointment viewing that you really have left. Everything else you can kind of watch it almost whenever you want.
Yeah,
but you've got to see a sporting event live. It's hard to watch it, especially in this day and age with social media. It's hard to be able to, if you tried to tape a game and watch it 4 hours later, good luck.
it doesn't
Not finding the outcome.
Yeah, right. So, all right, moving in to this, I'm gonna check out Who Moved My Cheese. I'm gonna check that book out. But if you could have dinner with anyone, who's at your table?
Well, much like I did with the most impactful people. I mean, obviously, because I think eating dinner as a family is a lost art. So obviously, I would pick my wife Kelly and my boys Rudy and Colton. Obviously, would be number one. Yes,
That's
my
awesome.
son is named Rudy, and anybody listening to this podcast, you obviously know where that name came from.
Yeah.
He actually met the real Rudy when he was when he was a young kid. He's 15 now. And the irony of it, this is just a quick aside. The irony of it is he is 5'0" and 100 and nothing, and his goal is to be the Rudy of soccer. So he's generally the littlest guy in the field, and he plays with the heart of a lion. So it's very interesting how names played into real life. So that would obviously be the easy answer or whatnot. Because again, I just think that eating as a family is a lost art. I know my family doesn't do it as often as we should. But we really appreciate when we do it, especially since my son Colton especially loves when we eat together as a family. But going the direction I think you really wanted to go with that question, I'm going to put three people I'm going to put there, just having a little bit of fun with this one, is Cal Ripken. Was my favorite athlete growing up. And just because, it's about showing up every day, giving your best effort, even when you're not 100%. You got John Wooden, just the pinnacle of coaching and coaches. I mean, there's few people to better emulate yourself on that. And then just really kind of taking a little bit of a fun angle would just be a character that, from TV that is real. I've really resonated with in recent years, and Ted Lasso. There's so many things that, you look at like management and life and whatnot. And some of my coworkers even joke with me at times, like, you are kind of like a real life Ted Lasso. But there's so many life lessons that you can get out of that show, though it's definitely not for young viewers, unfortunately, mainly because of the language. But there's just so many life lessons that were built into that show that I think that you could actually write a management book just out of that particular show. So if that character was a real life character, I'd love to have those three individuals at the table with me.
He'd be staring at the triangle. He'd be like, "Oh, what do we got here?"
I could only imagine what Ted would do with that particular table too, especially since he was a big fan of the Pyramid of Greatness that John Wooden's so well known for.
Right. I think Ted Lasso is one of the best shows to come out of COVID. It just it brought people together, and they finished it nicely. They didn't overdo it. It was beautiful to see that. At the same time, you got Wooden and you got Cal Ripken, two legends of the game that literally showed consistency time and time again. That's, sometimes I do this podcast and we've gotten over 60 different episodes that we've done, and some days you don't want to do it, or some days you're tired, or hey, I got to edit this. I have other responsibilities, but it's something about that consistency, day in and day out. Building.
When the other thing and I didn't even realize this until just now, as you were just kind of talking there a little bit, is the other thing is I think all three of them really bring one of the things I think is just really important to me in the way I carry myself every day and the way I manage my team and the way I try to be with my family is that character really matters. And all of those individuals, I think, really is, demonstrate the importance and value of character, especially in light of, in difficult circumstances, being able to stand there in the moment, in those critical moments, and being able to be able to, to take the disappointment, handle the disappointment in the spite of the in spite of some challenging moments.
100%, 100%. That's great. All right, next thing we like to ask is, so I'm going to combine these two together. So what are some of your proudest accomplishments throughout your career, and what are a couple things that you want to accomplish from this day forward?
Proudest thing in my career, I'm gonna go to two major things. I think one, just the ability to spin my ESPN disappointment as positively as I did and turning into the role that I've had today. Again, that was probably my biggest surprise in my career. Proudest moment is and you and I were talking this off air before the shows. I did some podcasting and stuff on the side, and I have my own NFL draft website, and quite a while back now. It's 2010, 2011. And my small little website called draft101.com was actually selected by USA Today to provide the scouting reports and mock drafts for their 2010 and 2011 NFL draft guides. And since they have some small little website, I called it my 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. job, that didn't make much money hardly at all, picked to provide something that high profile, and to see my my material and my content and my writing alongside Mel Kiper and Todd McShay and company is just one of those things that I'll always remember. And I'm eternally grateful to my wife who allowed me to do that, and B, has allowed me to frame those all four magazine covers and hang it in our front hallway of our house, because that was just something that I, just one of those achievements that, again, wasn't something I made a lot of money from or whatever, but it was an example of, one of those David versus Goliath moments where my little website got to stand up and hold its own versus, the titans of the industry. And so I'm eternally grateful to have that opportunity and to have been able to turn that little passion project. That's, the one claim to fame that I think we've had from that.
Draft101.com. That is so cool to be at the top of.
Yeah, the other thing is that was what allowed me to get the job at ESPN too. Is I think that opportunity but doing that with the website, even though I hardly ever did any work on NFL draft while I was at ESPN of all things, ironically, but that was a big piece of me getting the job there.
Yeah, you could help me with my fantasy teams. I could. I might have to come to you in the future for some help there. Great, and accomplishments just for the future. What do you want to get? What do you want to do going forward?
Accomplishments for the future, and that's a great question, because it's kind of like, as I approach my 50th birthday this year, it's just one of those things that I'm trying. You're just starting to think about. I mean, I'd love to be able to retire by the time I'm 60.
Nice.
I've got a personal goal to have a paid off house here, hopefully in the next 2, maybe 3 years, if I'm lucky. So that's one. And I think the other ones would just be, kind of those bucket list type of things where I want to see the Bengals win a Super Bowl, Notre Dame win another national championship.
We will.
Visit all 50 states and see the Northern Lights. And those last two, the biggest challenge I'm going to have on both is my wife hates the cold. So going to see the Northern Lights and getting my wife to Alaska are going to be two very, very difficult tasks to do. But those would be some of my short answers.
How many states have you been to?
I'm in the 30s somewhere. I don't know. I have to go back and count, but I'm in the 30s somewhere right now. And the ones I got to hit, they're all over the place too. It's not like I have like a particular category that I missed. It's not like I've got the whole West Coast or anything like that. I've got like pockets of like North and South Dakota, Alaska, Arkansas. Like they're just randomly placed states that I just haven't had a chance to visit yet.
Places that you're like, I'm only going there because I have to go there.
Exactly. Mexico's on there. But they're just like, I've been to states around them, so it's not like it's an easy get to a destination type of state in many cases. There's great things in every state, though, especially when you're visiting national parks and stuff. Those things that I've learned to appreciate much more as I've gotten older.
It's almost those places that actually have more pride and more appreciation for where they are and that
Yeah,
love for the town. And it's like, hey, we've actually been the best kept secret. We just didn't want the millions of people to flood in. So,
exactly.
oh, cool. That's awesome. And then last thing I'm going to ask, and something we started it off on the podcast, uh, do you believe in luck?
And as a Notre Dame fan, you have to. I mean, you have to believe in luck. But again, you're going to, but you got to position yourself for the luck that you're basically doing in those moments. I think that it's, luck doesn't just happen more often than not. But I think luck is something that we help create. And again, as I said at the top, I think it's all about the preparation that positions us to take advantage of the opportunity that arises. When I look at the big accomplishments I've had in my life, there was an element of luck to it, but more importantly, I think was the preparation and the effort that I put into it. And I always look at getting my dream job at ESPN was one of my biggest it was another one of those really big accomplishments, something I'm really proud that I was able to do, especially in the role that I was able to do and whatnot. And I remember that I had actually interviewed with ESPN 3 years before and didn't get the job. And I was heartbroken
Yeah.
at the time that I didn't get that opportunity. I thought that was the dream opportunity, et cetera, et cetera. Ended up getting um, a marketing role in between at a company called Epsilon. And then remember my boss, who was the one that would allow me, knew that I was working on that draft project I was telling you about that on the side and let me take off a day from work when my website crashed when that draft guide was due. And I remember her telling me when she actually saw the magazine for the first time, she goes, "Chris, I know you've always dreamed of getting that job at ESPN. Have you given up on that dream?" And so I reapplied for ESPN shortly after that. And that here I was 3 years later, the same person who turned me down for the job 3 years ago hired me for a role that was 3 grades higher than the one I didn't get before.
Yeah.
And he even joked with me. He goes, the best thing I ever did was didn't hire you 3 years ago because you never would have gotten to where you're at now if you had started at that position, at least not now. And that person was Patrick Caulfield that I mentioned earlier in the show. In terms of that, the fact that he remembered me and took the chance on me, and he liked to say of all the people he's ever met, he's never seen somebody grow more in 3 years than I did. And so I'm eternally grateful for that. But again, I worked hard for that opportunity. I positioned myself for it. Didn't get it the right opportunity, that first time around. Kept doing the things to make myself a better candidate, and it turned out, was able to get it, 3 years down the road. So it's opportunities are out there, but you got to create your own luck.
Luck meets opportunity. I love it. And that is the Luck Management Podcast. So, Chris, thank you so much for your time, your insights. So many people are going to love this episode. Wherever you listen, Apple, Spotify, we're also on YouTube. Keep living the Luck Management lifestyle. Peace. And then we usually end it from there. But thank you so much.
My pleasure, Carter. Is that it was a lot of fun. I haven't gotten to do something like this in a long time. So being able to be on something like this is bringing me back to a little bit of a blast in the past. And I'm still impressed that you found my name out of all those people on the Notre Dame web on the Irish Compass website, that you somehow found me in my motley background.
Look at me. I got lucky and it's turned into a great episode. So thank you so much. And I'm going to email you kind of when it all comes out and stuff. And I'd love to get your address. I want to send you just a little thank you.
Not a problem. I'll make sure I'll email you that address. And if you're ever in the Charlotte area, don't hesitate to look up what part of town your folks in.
Quail Hollow. So
okay, that's not that far from me. I'm just across the border in South Carolina in Indian Land.
Okay.
Which is right next to Fort Mill. So that's probably Quill Hollow is about 20 minutes from here, probably.
Yeah, I'm thinking about possibly moving back. So I may get.
Don't hesitate to look me up.
Yeah, let's grab lunch or coffee one time.
That's not a problem. I'll send you that address again. Thanks for having me, and it was a lot of fun. It was you asked a lot of good questions, and hopefully it gets some good viewers for you.
Thanks so much. I appreciate you.